Hey guys, so I just saw Joker, Folie, Deux, and me and Marquez are probably going to film a full review on our set next weekend, but I just want to give my out of theater thoughts just real quick while they're fresh in my mind. This movie was just kind of a really mixed bag for me. I really loved the first movie. Honestly, I probably gave it a lot higher of a rating in our review back when it came out. A lot higher than I would nowadays, but I still really love the first one. So I was really excited for this one, and I'll say I did think it was a pretty decent movie, which was probably a thing of expectations because I was seeing a lot of really bad reviews. It has a really low score on pretty much all review sites. So my expectations were really low going into it. So as I was watching it, I was like, this isn't too bad, this is pretty good. But it definitely had a lot of frustrating aspects to it. I think one of the biggest frustrating aspects for me about this movie is it feels like they don't want to let Arthur Fleck advance in his character progression. And what I mean by that, without going to spoilers, is that at the beginning of the first movie, it kind of suggested that he was kind of embracing that Joker mentality, that persona, especially that very last scene when he's talking to the therapist in the asylum. I thought going into this movie they were going to expand on that and further that dive into insanity that he was going through. But this movie opened up kind of taking two steps back. He kind of reverted back to that Arthur Fleck personality. And it wasn't until like the middle of the movie there's like a musical number in the courtroom. For one, that was probably my favorite musical number in this movie because this movie is a musical. And two, it kind of elevated the movie for like the next like 20 minutes. There's like a 20-minute section to where it became the movie that I came to see, and it was like an hour into the movie. And I was really excited because I thought it was like ramping up and it was going to keep going up and up and up until the end of the movie. But then after that 20-minute section, it just kind of took 2 or 3 steps back again in his character, and it's like, it was really frustrating. It's like they had his character like stuck in mud and they didn't want him to keep going with his character progression, like I said earlier. It's like they tried to make him too sympathetic in this movie. Where I didn't mind it in the first movie, it made sense, but this movie, it's like they didn't want him to go down the villain path that he's supposed to go down, and it was just frustrating to watch, especially for over 2 hours. Now for the musical side of things, honestly, when it was announced that this was going to be a musical, I honestly didn't really mind the idea. I mean, for one, my dad is a really big musical guy, so I kind of grew up around musicals, so I knew it wasn't going to bother me as much as a lot of other moviegoers, especially fans of the first movie. I mean, I even have a Phantom of the Opera tattoo. But I will say that I do think that they kind of went a little overboard with the musical numbers, because like I understand what they're going for, and I actually kind of like the idea that Arthur Fleck is in such a delusional state of mind at this point that these musical numbers are a personification of that delusion. And it's honestly not too far-fetched for Joker just as a character to have a few musical numbers every now and then, in my opinion at least. But I do think they could have used the musical numbers a little more sparingly, because after a certain point it just got a little out of place. Well, a lot of out of place, honestly. And I do think they should have kept the musical numbers to inside his head, because there's a lot of times, especially as the movie went on, to where it was made obvious that he was actually singing in the real world. I mean, there's a lot of times where the musical numbers were in his head, but there were other times where the singing actually was in the real world, and I feel like they could have at least mostly just kept it in his head. But like I said, I did think it was a pretty decent movie, and I'm probably not going to go into too many thoughts right now because, like I said, me and Marquez are going to film a full review probably next weekend, hopefully. It was a really well filmed movie. Like, the shots that are in this movie are just amazing to look at, honestly. Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga are both great in this movie. And I also do want to say that at the beginning, I felt like it was like a cheap shortcut to just have Harley Quinn be totally insane already and in the asylum already. But as the movie went on and things were revealed, I kind of understood why they did it that way. But at the same time, I feel like this movie could have been a lot more of a psychological drama of the Joker manipulating Harley Quinn into becoming more and more insane. She could have started off as a psychiatrist for the Joker, and just throughout the movie just shown the Joker's manipulative nature, especially because with his dark past, it would have just been interesting to dive into the fact that he's continuing the cycle of this abuse. But as the movie went on, I kind of understood what they were going for, so I didn't dislike it as much as I did in the beginning, but it still wasn't the best it could have been. It did also have great moments scattered throughout the movie, to where like I can see what they're trying to do with this movie, especially when they're like diving into Arthur Fleck's mindset. I did really appreciate that, and I really enjoyed those moments. It was just surrounded by kind of frustrating decisions throughout the movie.